The feud between Guyana and Venezuela has now reached a boiling point, and it is worrying a lot of people. Do you know what this means? A fully fledged war could break out between the countries, and American expats could end up trapped in the conflict. Fueled by a deep sense of national pride, the Venezuelan government is leveraging this conflict to garner support before an impending presidential election. The population in Venezuela is already very tired from enduring a decade-long crisis that has plunged many into poverty, and expats are stuck there dealing with the aftermath. But here's the thing, everything was fine until one day, the Venezuelan ruling party decided to unleash chaos. Let's find out why things have heated all of a sudden. The referendum. Things went down when Venezuelans endorsed a referendum on December 3, 2023, affirming their claim on Essequibo, a land encompassing 2/3 of Guyana and strategically located near substantial offshore oil reserves. While an immediate military standoff seems impossible, numerous nations have echoed Guyana's concerns regarding any potential takeover by their western neighbor. The situation remains tense, escalating the geopolitical stakes in the region and driving the populations further into turmoil. But how exactly did it all begin? The root of the dispute. In 1899, during Guyana's British colonial era, a boundary was decided upon by arbitrators from Britain, Russia, and the United States. And let's just say that Venezuela wasn't very happy about it. It claimed that it was a victim of a land theft conspiracy. Interestingly, the United States represented Venezuela in part due to the diplomatic rift between Venezuela and Britain. Venezuelan officials argue that the agreement was a result of collusion between Americans and Europeans, leading to their country being deprived of its rightful land. Moreover, they assert that the 1966 agreement between Venezuela, Britain, and British Guyana, intended to settle the dispute, essentially rendered the original arbitration void. On the other hand, Guyana has its own ideology. It asserts that the initial agreement holds legal weight and is binding. In an attempt to cement this stance, Guyana sought the intervention of the United States top court in 2018, seeking a ruling in its favor. However, a final decision from the court is anticipated to be years in the making, prolonging the resolution of this ongoing dispute. But why exactly is this piece of land so valuable to Venezuela? Trust me, there's always a catch. Essequibo's got oil. In 2015, a significant discovery of oil reserves was made off the coast of Essequibo, courtesy of an ExxonMobil-led consortium. This discovery stirred Venezuela's interest, although their commitment to pressing the territorial claim has varied over time. The consortium wasted no time, initiating oil extraction in December 2019. This move transformed the predominantly agricultural landscape of Guyana into the world's fourth largest offshore oil producer. This newfound industry pumps around $1 billion annually into the economy of this nation, accommodating nearly 800,000 people. Guyana's economy experienced a staggering 60% expansion in the initial 6 months of this year, and nobody could have imagined such a massive jump mere months ago. Right now, the daily oil production stands at approximately 380,000 barrels, and the forecast is a surge to 800,000 barrels soon. In November 2023, most of Guyana's crude exports headed toward the Netherlands and Panama. Interestingly, a significant portion of the oil that reached Panama was then re-exported to the US West Coast. In a bid to further tap into its oil potential, Guyana opened bids for 14 additional offshore oil blocks, attracting submissions from 6 companies and groups. Notably, ExxonMobil alongside US-based Hess Corp and China National Offshore Oil Corp submitted bids. French-owned Total Energies joined forces with companies from Qatar and Malaysia in the bidding process. Now, here's the thing. Guyana's oil industry has witnessed a meteoric rise, but in contrast, Venezuela's has seen a drastic decline. Despite having the world's largest proven crude reserves, Venezuela's oil sector has been severely debilitated by years of mismanagement and economic sanctions, a consequence of President Nicolas Maduro's widely contested re-election in 2018. Venezuela's National Assembly remains tight-lipped about the specifics of the law it intends to employ to enforce the referendum outcomes. However, lawmakers hinted at discussions suggesting a potential ban on both local and foreign companies from operating within Venezuela if these companies also engage in business activities in Guyana. But the oil reserves aren't the only attraction for Venezuela. The ruling party has a lot to gain. Maduro's election strategy. Maduro and his ruling crew see the Essequibo issue as a chance to rally local support and divert attention away from pressing issues like U.S. demands for the release of political detainees and ensuring fair conditions in the upcoming presidential election. In the lead-up to the December 3 referendum, Venezuelans were bombarded with Essequibo-themed tunes, televised history lessons, murals decorating the streets, massive rallies, and a flood of social media posts. However, it seems this strategy may have backfired. According to the government, roughly 10.5 million people, slightly over half of eligible voters, turned up to cast their votes. Supposedly, the voters sanctioned the rejection of the 1899 boundary in every possible manner, proposed turning Essequibo into a state, granted Venezuelan citizenship to area residents, and opposed the UN court's jurisdiction over the dispute. Yet, journalists from the Associated Press and eyewitnesses at voting sites reported that the typically long queues seen in Venezuelan elections were notably absent. Now, here's the million-dollar question. Where exactly is this headed? Predictions about the progression of the conflict. Maduro's administration made it known that they're open to a high-level sit-down with Guyana, aiming to uphold the vision of Latin America and the Caribbean as a peaceful zone without interference from outside forces. This proposal came through conversations involving Maduro, Brazil's President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines Prime Minister, Ralph Gonsalves. Gonsalves penned a letter to both Maduro and Guyana's President, Irfan Ali, stressing the urgency of de-escalating the conflict and setting up a meeting in his Caribbean nation. Meanwhile, a senior intelligence analyst, Zev Feintuch, suggests that Venezuela might gradually heighten tensions, potentially even engaging in naval exercises near Guyana. Feintuch anticipates a strategic buildup of activities, especially leading up to the Venezuelan elections. According to him, Maduro's priority is securing re-election and increasing oil exports. Feintuch highlighted the impracticality of a full-scale invasion of the expansive and scarcely populated Essequibo region, citing its vastness and lack of infrastructure like roads. Responding to these tensions, Guyana's Vice President, Bharat Jagdeo, advised oil companies operating near Essequibo to disregard Maduro's rhetoric and actions. Jagdeo stressed Guyana's commitment to safeguarding its sovereignty and indicated readiness to take necessary measures if required. Jagdeo firmly stated that any moves by Venezuela's state entities to search for oil in Guyana's area would be seen as an intrusion. He emphasized that Maduro's aggressive stance won't lead to desired talks between the nations. Amid the tension, the UN Security Council held an urgent closed-door session while global leaders and international bodies rallied behind Guyana. Simultaneously, members of the regional bloc CARICOM called a private meeting to address the dispute. The Organization of American States, in a statement, affirmed the validity of the 1899 boundary, highlighting its binding nature under international law. It criticized Maduro's government for its forceful actions against Guyana and its promotion of unlawful measures. Expressing concern, the organization underscored the heightened situation's impact on regional security. They emphasized the threat it poses to stability and territorial sovereignty within the hemisphere, labeling it a matter of significant worry. Now, the Guyanese have experienced a recent boom in their economy, and until the feud doesn't escalate, things are going well for the American expats over there. But while Maduro's government stays adamant on its claim, people living in Venezuela are suffering. The life of expats in Venezuela. The transformation this nation has gone through over the past decade reflects a complex blend of political, social, and economic turmoil. It all began with a global oil price plunge, Venezuela's prized resource, coupled with mismanagement by the proclaimed socialist leadership and government crackdowns on dissent. Recent times have seen a resurgence of difficulties after a brief phase of economic stability that trickled through parts of 2021 and 2022. Now they're back to facing daily struggles with escalating food costs and shuttering businesses. Living in the country has become almost unbearable, and considering how bleak the future looks, one can't help but seriously consider migration. Unsurprisingly, a clear sense of disinterest and disillusionment with the political landscape has deeply rooted itself among both the young and old, be it Maduro, his allies, or his opponents. This feeling stems from a string of letdowns, corruption allegations, widespread misinformation, and government suppression. Now you can imagine just how difficult it is to live in a political landscape so full of flaws. The economy gets worse. The breather, following an immense 80% shrink in Venezuela's economy from 2014 to 2021, actually enticed some Venezuelans to return from their stay in Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador, where job prospects post-pandemic were slim. This phase also slowed down the mass exodus from Venezuela. Just like that, American expats also saw this as an opportunity to stay for longer, even if they were considering leaving. But by January, that sense of stability had evaporated. President's Day passed without the usual Labor Day announcement about a hike in the minimum wage. The last raise, back in April 2022, boosted monthly pay to 130 bolivares, equivalent to $30 then, but now dwindling to a mere $3.70. Nowadays, everyday basics come with hefty price tags, costing around $2.40 for a kilo of chicken, $2.25 for a dozen eggs, and $2 for a liter of milk. While over 7.7 million Venezuelans have sought refuge in Latin America and Caribbean countries, the destination has shifted. Rather than neighboring countries like Colombia or Peru, attention is now turning to the United States, becoming the new target for migration since the crisis unfolded. For expats in Venezuela, the crisis feels like an endless stretch of hardships marked by significant events in different years: mass protests against Maduro in 2017, food scarcities in 2018, nationwide blackouts in 2019, and 2020's infamous days-long queues at gas stations. Anxiety mounts as many of these hardships converge. Supermarket shelves are witnessing dwindling product varieties, and local markets are thinning out. Stores stocking imported goods strategically display items at the front, creating an illusion of fullness. Restaurants are shutting down. And refueling vehicles with subsidized fuel requires meticulous planning. Things are bad, and if this conflict continues to escalate, both Guyana and Venezuela will become war-torn countries, with their economies and social lives destroyed, and with expats either leaving or being trapped in the aftermath. Do you think this issue could be resolved before it gets worse? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, do us a solid and smash that like button. Make sure to subscribe so you'll be the first to know about upcoming content. Buckle up, folks, because there's a lot we have in store for you.